instances of harming children. None. I spent 2.5 hours over the past couple of days on and off on Google searching anything, police records, FBI reports. Do these places harm children? No. No, they don't. You said they're completely free and open, there's no security. Well, then why the gates? Why the fences? Why the gates? Why the fences around Liberty High School? Why the secret codes at Liberty High School? Is it because we're trying to protect people inside of Liberty High School? Or because we're trying to protect the community from Liberty High School? Well, it's the latter. The community was so upset with and I only know the inside stuff at Liberty because I taught there, with the behavior and the incivility of Liberty High School students that we're now, well, I'm retired, but they're now on lockdown from the time they open to the time they close to keep kids in from littering and harassing and defacing the neighborhood. So why would we vilify? Why would a group of citizens in Bethlehem vilify fellow citizens for voluntarily seeking help, instead of trying humbly, working humbly within to attack, to solve the drug problems and the alcohol abuses in their own schools and in our own institutions and in our own homes? Because I believe it's so much easier to point fingers and to fight against those people we really want to believe are different than us, when in actuality, they are us. It's a mother who drinks too much. It's an uncle addicted to painkillers. It's a football player addicted to steroids. It's my sister-in-law addicted to anything she can get her hands on. And I cannot pretend that I don't know that. And I cannot sign my name or vote to attack or to in any way vilify this industry or these people who need the kind of support that I believe Bethlehem stands for.
Thank you. Any other comments? I ask the clerk to call the roll on the motion.
Roll call on the motion to add the resolution. Mrs. Belinsky.
Aye.
Mr. DeGiacinto.
Aye.
Ms. Dolan.
Nay.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Maurer.
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Donchez.
Aye.
6-1, the motion
I ask the
passed.
clerk to read the resolution.
Be it resolved by the Council of the City of Bethlehem that the Bethlehem City Council Solicitor Christopher T. Spadoni Esquire is hereby authorized to enter his appearance for Bethlehem City Council, intervene, and to present any and all necessary testimony, filings, and/or documents as deemed necessary by the council solicitor in the zoning appeal currently pending before the zoning hearing board of the City of Bethlehem as filed by Penn Venture Capital LLC for premises at 111 Dewberry Avenue, Bethlehem, and to object to the residential treatment facility application of Penn Venture Capital. The resolution is sponsored by David DeGiacinto and Jean Belinsky.
Discussion. Please call the roll on the resolution, please.
Mrs. Belinsky.
Aye.
Mr. DeGiacinto.
Aye.
Ms. Dolan.
Nay.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Maurer.
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Donchez.
Aye.
6-1 passes.
We will move to new business. I would just ask my colleagues to try to respond with the city clerk as soon as possible, dealing with future prospective budget dates. We'd like to try to, in the next week or 2 weeks, finalize a budget schedule. I know some members have conflicts, but try to get back to Sydney as soon as possible. Any other new business for members of council? We'll move the courtesy of the floor. Public comment on any issue for 5 minutes. Mr. Howe?
May I go first?
I'll let you go second, Chuck.
All right.
Mr. Howe?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Yang Hao. I live at 3218 Martin Drive, Bethlehem. My first comments, but I want to bring your attention to one of the new changes made by zoning office before the last public discussion of proposed new zoning ordinance. In the memo from Ms. Darlene Taylor, dated October 19, 2011, a clause for safeguarding the residential property within the CMU district was crossed out. Such a sudden change without any merit and discussion is very dangerous. Are there any other changes is making by zoning office? Our question for that is, what was the intention and purpose for such changes? Why do we want to remove such safeguard requirement for non-residential building if such building is built next to a residential property within the CMU district? It is against intention and purpose of a zoning ordinance. Just to let you know, the location of that clause was crossed out is in the Ms. Darlene Taylor's memo, and the section we are talking about is in the CMU. It's called additional requirement in the CMU district, Article 1313. And one clause is said, A, existing principal residential use, that was crossed out. That shouldn't happen. My second point is that we are thankful for your support to propose the new zoning ordinance regarding diesel power vehicles. No matter this diesel power vehicle is located within or outside residential district. In your proposal, you proposed for retail store, warehouse with loading dock for diesel power vehicles in or adjacent to a residential district. No part of loading docks, retail store, or warehouse should be located within 100 feet of a residential area. However, we received a response from Ms. Darlene Taylor, and she said in his memo, she said the 100-foot provision is too prohibitive. Many lots are not much more than 100 feet deep. This provision would render the parcel unable to load or unload, rendering them difficulty or unable to redevelop. In addition, loading and unloading should be always happen in the rear of the lot rather than the front. Screening provision should be typical in place of address loading dock rather than in practicable setback distance. But please beware if you check the information online, for example from pahighway.com. They tell you the size of truck trailers. It is 73 to 80 feet. The truck trailer itself is 53 feet, and the cab on the front is 20 feet. So you measure like between 73 to 80 feet in total. So if a truck need at least 120 to 150 feet of open space to back and forth, to back the loading dock. So if a property with a lot just about 100 feet deep, it will not have a warehouse or loading dock for truck trailer operations. Therefore, her statement is just for the sake of argument. It's no merit. We also disagree with her suggestion to just use the screening provision to address the issue. We think that's inadequate to safeguard residential property from the negative effect of warehouse and the loading dock operations. The screening with a few shrubs and trees will never able to block any toxic exhaust particles, noise, vibrations from powerful diesel engines. If this is allowed to park or running as close as 25 feet to our residential homes within residential district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. House. Dr. Moran?
give me a chance before I get my notes. I have several topics to address. First, I would ask
Your name and address again.
William Moran, 2345 Center Street, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. The first involves the properties of Mr. Attia located on Dewberry and Center Street. For over a year, he has developed a junkyard, an open view of what Mr. Kelly described as the jewel entrance to the city of Bethlehem. No action has been taken by the mayor or his administration to enforce the nuisance law. I urge you to instruct the mayor to take immediate action. Second, as long as we're talking about continuous improvements, I suggest that the mayor have installed a computer system that will tickle his correspondence. Since I mailed a letter to him sometime before the zoning hearing board and asked for his assistance, he never called back, even though I called his office. He never responded to the letter. He needs a system to control his correspondence so he can reply to citizens' complaints. Thirdly, I discovered today in the Easton Express, shocking news. The solicitor to the Board of Zoning is none other than the solicitor to Mr. Attia's co-company, Brookside Construction. And he appeared before the West Easton Board the other night. That is a clear, inappropriate appearance of impropriety, since Mr. Attia is perhaps the largest developer currently operating in this city. And I ask the mayor and the city to look at that. Finally, I went to City Hall, to the zoning office, a few weeks ago, and asked to review an application that had been filed by Mr. Attia. It was an official document. I was denied the right to look at it and told to file a right to know act. I have since corresponded with Mr. Spurk and told him I viewed it as a public document and that his response to me, signed by a paralegal, not by Mr. Spurk or an attorney, was an absurd assertion. Those records should be open to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Dominic Celestina. Hope I pronounced that correctly.
Thank you for having us. I'm part of.
Just your name
My
and
name
address.
is Dominic Celestina. I live on 423 East Union Boulevard.
Thank you.
I've lived here my whole life. I'm 22. I went through, Bethlehem and Fountain Hill and Brockle and Liberty. And I'm here with Occupy Bethlehem to try to get out to the public that, we're here for the public. We want to build a stronger society where we can talk to each other and actually, have our neighbors participate in our life and have the people we cross on a daily, pattern going to and from work, be able to talk to people and really discuss the problems that we all are facing, but seem to not really get out there and, be paid attention to. So I just want to let it be known that Occupy Bethlehem doesn't want to be a nuisance at all, and we want to be here to benefit Bethlehem and eventually try to benefit, our country. This movement, the occupation movement, has gone global due to the fact that these problems are global, and there has to be solutions. And I feel that talking to all the people through a true democratic way, we can discuss the problems and eventually come to solutions that we can all agree on. That might be revolutionary. I think it's very very important to realize that we are now in the 21st century, and a lot of what we do is not a part. It has not involved the new technology. It has not involved the new studies. And I think that, through just interaction with each other and listening to each other's needs and problems, we can come to conclusions where we can all benefit and prosper. I feel like this is very important, not only for Bethlehem or just Pennsylvania or just our country, but for the world, to try to realize that we can come together as human beings and realize that we're all suffering. And with today's new technology and with today's new information, we don't have to suffer. We can easily make renewable resources, renewable energy. These are just simple things. I think our education system needs to be updated because we understand now the development of the human mind, and we can more focus on the development of the human mind and how we can teach that human mind to make the best decisions possible, to help be a part of the community. I want to see a day where we can all talk to each other as friends and to really communicate to each other on a personal level about the problems and solutions we can easily come up with. So thank you very much. We like to say we're starting up meetings to try to take steps in becoming more of an active party, our group. And we'd like to say if anyone wants to come down, we're trying to listen and really come up with real decisions so that we can actually make real changes. That takes everyone to come down, even for just a day or so, or an hour, and really just start talking to people around us. I think that's important for us to start communicating to each other and really opening up and allowing us to hear each other. I think we all can make very big changes individually and as a society, and I think it just needs to start with us, starting to talk to each other, starting to have compassion for one another, and not allow silly things to dilute our way of thinking, and put others' needs before the group. Well, thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Mr. Grubb?
Dana Grubb, 2420 Henderson Place. The storm that hit on Saturday was probably a once-in-a-lifetime kind of an event, particularly for it to happen at that time of the year, and caused the kind of damage that it did. And, I actually had to drive back and forth to Newark Airport on Saturday and deliver somebody to the airport. And I want to tell you, that was right when I was driving through Pennsylvania during Hurricane Agnes back in 1972. It was a trip I wouldn't want to make again. But as I was moving around the city, I think somebody else should be complimented for dealing with what happened on Saturday, and that's the residents and the motorists of the city. My observations were there were a lot of lights not operating. People were very patient at the intersections. There were a number of streets where trees were down, maybe only one lane you could get around, and people were actually alternating and letting each other get through. So I think the residents of the city really deserve a compliment as well. Yesterday and today, I received 2 emails from Hanover Township. Hanover Township has a system set up where you can receive notifications from the township. This gets to something that Al Vernitas and I have been bringing up on a number of occasions. And Hanover Township sent a bulletin out yesterday and a reminder today about emergency storm cleanup. They're suspending leaf collection until further notice. Yard waste collection for November is canceled, And beginning tomorrow, they will begin storm debris cleanup, and they outline the process for the residents out there to do it. They sent a reminder out today. And I think it's time, and maybe for CI to address this, to take a look at doing a similar thing with the city's website. The city has a lot of information to disseminate. Residents are in the dark. There's been no press releases. There's been absolutely no dissemination of information concerning city services up to this point in time. And I think having a setup like this where citizens could, and even non-citizens, could enter their email address and receive these types of notifications. So I hope that's something that will be addressed in the future. When I worked at the city, I had an awful lot of complaints over the length of my career. And in dealing with those complaints, I had a personal philosophy. And that personal philosophy was I always tried to put myself in the place of the person calling in with the concern and treat it as if I was living next door to the high grass, the dog dirt in the yard, the garbage, that type of thing. I think it's important as both city employees, city officials, and elected officials to be able to empathize with people who have issues and concerns. And I think we're I'm not that far away from the church on Dewberry Avenue, but certainly it's not in my backyard. But I think the residents and the institutions that are directly impacted by that, I think elected officials and other city officials need to be able to empathize with what the potential is for what's going to happen over there. And so I was happy to see you take the action you took tonight. Quite frankly, I hope the zoning hearing board rejects the special exception. But I think the action that City Council took tonight was a similar situation where you understood residents' concerns, you empathized with what the potential is for what they're facing, and you took the appropriate action. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shire?
Bill Shire, 1890 Eaton Avenue. Recently, I became aware of a disconnect, if I can use that word. A mathematician would call it a discontinuity as opposed to a continuity, where the adjective is continuous. It concerns flu shots, and I'm glad to see that somebody from the Health Bureau is still here. A couple of years ago, I started getting my flu shots from the city, because you remember that year where it was not sure when the supplies would be coming in, and my doctor wasn't sure, and the city had them, and so that's when I started getting them from the city, which I did this year. And the notice in the paper said $10, but the certain Medicare people would not have to pay. So I found out I had to pay $10 this year for the first time. And I asked what, and of course this is not a large sum of money, and it's certainly, it's not insignificant. It's certainly a reasonable cost, but, well, what was the change? And I was told, now listen closely, I was asked if I had Medigap. For those of you who aren't old enough, Medigap fills the gaps, the co-pays and deductibles and so on. And I said yes. Oh, well then, we have to charge $10. Because last year, we weren't able to bill Medicare, and you got stuck with a large bill. So, okay, I paid the $10, but this sounded kind of strange. And so I called the Health Bureau the next day, and then talked to an older person, and got the same story. So then I called my doctor, and are you having any trouble billing Medicare for flu shots? No. So I called Medicare, and I talked to a fellow named Brian in Kentucky, and he said, no, Medicare covers it. I called another number at Medicare, I got a recording saying Medicare covers flu shots, and there was no qualification, flat out, Medicare covers flu shots. Why is this an issue? Well, some people, maybe you're so close to the edge that they would walk away and not pay the $10 for the flu shot, and that can have an adverse effect on the rest of us. I call it a discontinuity because there's a gap here, something is amiss. So I hope the explanation comes out and not something about if you have Medigap, you can't get Medicare. Medigap fills the gaps of Medicare. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Second row.
Got that off my chest.
Craig Weidman, 460 Carlton Avenue. I believe the public square is best when we're having a conversation with each other rather than talking at each other. When you get the microphone like this kind of a forum, it's hard to think in terms of having conversation. It's very easy to talk at. And so often in these kinds of forums, that's the way we deal with issues. We talk at. I would agree with the outcome relative to the Dewberry decision tonight. But we had one dissenting member on council whose voice still needs to be heard and listened to. Even though I believe the right decision was made, there were a lot of things we need to think about and consider in what was shared in the dissenting voice. And some things we can learn about ourselves as we listen to that. If we were to be somebody who feels very strongly that this particular developer shouldn't develop this facility in this location, and we were to say there is no school next door, let's remove that factor. Would we feel differently? And if we felt no differently whatsoever, but the school was a nice argument to support something else deeper, perhaps the voice of the dissenter has said something that speaks into a place in our souls. Maybe we need to pause for just a little bit. Even though we may be right about the decision in these given circumstances, we still may be wrong. My mom, she had these sayings when I was a kid, and I hated them then, and I find myself realizing the wisdom of them. And she used to say, you know, you can be right and still be wrong. We can be right on the facts and be wrong in the way we go about it. And that's the beauty of our particular experiment and why we can do this here tonight. We're able to speak our minds. Individuals can occupy Bethlehem. And we can voice our concerns. But as we do that, let's make sure that we don't make it just simply about being heard, but also about making sure we hear and listen. And hopefully learn some things about ourselves and others. And when that happens, I think in the sentiment of some of the things that were shared earlier from the representative from Occupy, I think we become a better community, a stronger community, even when we disagree on final outcomes. When we've listened to each other and been willing to say, I can learn something from somebody here. I can learn something about myself. I can grow from the person that I disagree with on the final decision, but in the process of having a conversation about the issue, I'm better. I've grown. I understand something I didn't before. I respect other people more deeply than I used to. Just on another side, or another issue, I was actually pretty delighted to see what, for many people, causes eyes to glaze over when we talk about things like continuous improvement, systems and structures and so forth. For many people, it's kind of boring stuff, but it's the stuff that makes a difference. And we talk about learning from business and all of that in government, and there is something to learn. Business and government are not exactly the same. Both have an outcome, both have a bottom line, but it's a different bottom line. In business, the bottom line, I think unfortunately, and Occupy is pointing this out for us these days, is dollars. Now, I think responsible corporate citizens are also serving the community, but government is about serving. One of the things that was exciting to me as I looked at many of the initiatives and evaluation in the continuous improvement is that many of these things had to do with upping the game of the city in terms of providing service